I work in, as a social worker, I work in it's an agency where we're grant funded basically, and we link people to treatment. So we do treatment referrals. We give resources out to people. We're 24/7, so people can come in anytime. We offer peer engagement. There's a clinician on staff, always ready to sit and talk. We do outreach in the community, train people on Narcan, anything. We want to give people the most information that we can, and we also just want to get people placed as quickly as possible, because when you're ready to stop using, that you might not have the same willingness in an hour or tomorrow or whatever. When you're there right now, we do everything that we can for you to get you placed, and we'll try any means. We have partnerships and resources that we can call on to try to get people in there. So basically, that's what I'm doing right now. So it's a bit of a counselor, a bit of peer work at the same time, and we just try to engage the people who come in as warm as possible, and try to get them placed and get them to where they want to be and where they need to be as soon as possible.
All right.
It's very, a typical day for me is very, it's random. So I never know what I'm walking into. Because we're a 24-hour facility, somebody might be there when I get there that's been waiting for an evaluation. There might be people getting ready to go to treatment. Or we might get there and nobody comes in for a while, and then all of a sudden 7 people walk in and they all want evaluations and help getting connected. So we don't have appointments. Typically people just kind of walk in, come whenever they can. If we get a call from a place, we might go pick up some people. So it's really it's the fun part, is I never know like what's happening, and but it's very dynamic. So I could be walking in for a day where I'm sitting at the desk, doing evaluations all day and connecting people, or I could be out in the community. So it's very diverse, and that's what I love about the job, is that I'm not sedentary unless I kind of want to be, and or need to be. Whatever helps the client. Because that's really the main part. So as long as when I walk in, there's a client there that we can assist in any way, then that's what we do. So.
Nice. There's a lot of
relapse is, people say relapse is part of recovery, and that's very controversial in the recovery world, because you don't need to relapse in order to be in recovery, obviously, and and especially in a clinical sense, there's harm reduction. So if somebody's drinking a case of beer, now they're drinking 6-pack a day, it's like, and they're happy with that. It's like, well, who am I to say different, right? In facilities, people AMA, leave against medical advice, fairly, it's a fairly common phenomenon. And while yes, of course that's frustrating, but it's also, when they come back in and to try to get help, it's just another chance. And it can be rewarding as well, this field, because sometimes you get somebody who walks back in and says, either because of you guys we got into a place, or just even if we didn't do anything, if just getting somebody to treatment is a reward for us, because it's like this person has a chance now. They're not going to be on the street. They're not going to be doing this. At least hopefully tonight they're safe, and as we know in the field, and most of us know, it's got to be the person. The person's got to want it. If they don't want it, you could have the golden road to treatment and it won't matter. So anytime somebody goes back out, I'm just happy that they're coming back in. That means they're still alive and there's still a chance. So that's how I have to kind of frame it and look at it. My frustrations go out the window, because while I could be frustrated, that's not helping that person, and that's my own ego, and that's my own, stuff that I have to work out. So really, yeah, I'm just happy that if the person makes it back, that we have another chance to try to, show them that there's a different way of life. They don't need to use.
How do you manage your own triggering?
Oh, absolutely. This field, especially as somebody who's in recovery. It's like paramount that you take care of yourself, and I know many of my colleagues, including myself, will kind of put that on the wayside, and we'll just go, and do as much as we can, help, and put ourselves out there, and that's very draining to me. And I'll start noticing how I'm acting outside of work, and for me, I have to structure it to, like, when I leave work, I'm done with work. Now, that used to be the case, but now I'm a supervisor. I get calls all the time from people and all this kind of stuff. So I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, that I'm working my program, that I'm calling my supports and talking to them, and doing the things that I need to do to replenish myself. Now, I'm bad at that sometimes, and it turns into what we call burnout. Compassion fatigue, things like this that can happen very easily. But I've never gotten to the point where I think using would be an option, or using would be, because I see to see the state of the people who walk in, every day, and it's like, that's not where I want to be. Am I tired? Do I get angry? Do I snap at my loved ones? Do I become cynical? Yes. And when I find that I'm doing that, that's when having that self-awareness and having good people around you to kind of tell you what's going on, then I can adjust. But there's plenty of things to do. People go to, I go to a meeting, talk to my sponsor, go on vacation, go for a walk. Anything I can do to just kind of clear my head is going to help me in my recovery, and help me, like, build up that armor, that I need to go into work. What makes heroin so enticing? It's difficult, because some people hate opiates. Some people hate uppers. It's just, for whatever reason, to a certain amount of the population, opiates have been used for generations as, exactly for what we use it for. Good or ill. Look at the opium dens in San Francisco and all around. That's what people used to do. So it's just always been there. It's always, it's inundated in human culture somehow, is that the opiate, and the poppy plant and all this kind of stuff. But what's good is, like, if you take it, whether you hurt your leg, the first time is like when I hurt myself or something, and I take a pill, painkiller, and then the feeling it gave me was just like, it was like washing, like, warmth just, like, all over me, and the buzz of your entire body and all this kind of thing that was, I said before, it was like crawling back into the womb. It was like safe. I didn't care about anything. I didn't want anything. I was perfectly content just being where I was at, and that's what hooked me. I was like, I want that feeling all the time. Now, eventually, the things that I ended up doing for the drug was not so enticing. It was a terrible, taskmaster, and I just had to do whatever I could to keep it going. But at that point, it was like, it was too late. So I don't know. It's an interesting question. But
Can that stigma ever truly go away?
I don't think that, I really don't think the stigma is ever going to go away. All you have to do is look at any stigmatized culture, any stigmatized race or anything. Has that ever gone away? No. It's the people are going to always think how they're going to think. And I don't want to sound cynical, but it's like, just look at America today. People are still bringing up stuff from hundreds of years ago, 50 years ago, all this kind of stuff, and they'll still refer to people in that manner. So of course, is somebody going to be use stigmatizing language when thinking about somebody who's dealing with substance use? Of course they are. Like, there's going to be somebody. You're never going to squash it 100%. I just don't see that happening.
Do you think it's gotten better though?
Yeah, I think it's gotten better in areas. Now it's definitely more prevalent, so it's forced. The opioid epidemic has really forced it into the spotlight, and I do think the stigma has gotten better in recent time. The opioid epidemic has pretty much kind of forced it into the spotlight, and really, made people have to consider, what's going on. And I mean, this is like talk that's been going on in the field for a long time, using non-stigmatizing language. But while it's gotten better, I mean, sure, from what it has been, but it still has a long way to go,
Yeah, documentary, urine clean.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, like, we can be PC to death, and that's what really, I think, forces people to not want to be PC, because they're so sick of it, and it's like, you're almost pushing people to, like, react, I think.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Because that's what it's sick of it, and people get like, screw it. I'm just gonna refer to it like this because it's easier for me. Right. Because that's whatever's easier.
It's just like too much nuance to hold in your mind.
Yeah. Let me tell you a story. Needles come from, like, yeah, storks bring them. No, it's we go, while using. I mean, you can go to a pharmacy and buy syringes. They're not illegal.
Oh, they're not.
No, syringes.
I thought you couldn't get them without a prescription.
No, you get a whole bag of them for $3. Maybe today, I'm not 100%, but not a couple, years ago. It's like, yeah, you go buy a thing of needles for $5. I mean, you're gonna take the shitty look that they're gonna give you at the pharmacy, because they know, and you used to make up like, oh, my uncle's diabetic or something, and they just look at you and you take the look and you go. And so you could buy needles at any pharmacy. I mean, maybe now things have changed a little bit, or have you even heard of, potentially like a pharmacy contacting a doctor or putting it on like the My Chart where all the doctors can see, so there's more awareness. If they're not doing that, I think that is a good idea, But even so, then you have the syringe exchange through Trillium that people can walk in, you get a card or whatever, and you get free, clean syringes, cookers, bands for your arm, and all this kind of stuff. Like, they have all of that there for you, because the idea being you'd rather have clean syringes to use out there than keep using dirty ones and possibly cause, spreading bloodborne diseases and all these kinds of things like HIV or Hep C and all that. So yeah, you can get them for free at Trillium Syringe Exchange, or you can go to a pharmacy and buy them. I don't know the statistics on how many people have Hep C or HIV or anything like that are in treatment. Oasis perhaps would, but yeah, I couldn't really answer that in any kind of. No, well, I mean, if they tell you, yeah, but I mean, how many people I see, it's yeah, yeah, I don't really, I couldn't answer that with any kind of like.
Because I've never even met with someone with even Hep C, so like.
Oh, you probably have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but.
That you would know about.
Yeah.
But it does happen.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, people come in, but they have treatments for Hep C now and like HIV and stuff like this. When usually people are using, they're not getting the treatment, so it's getting worse.
Is TB prevalent also?
It's not really. I don't think I've ever run into somebody, because most people coming through, if they've gone to a treatment facility ever, they do a TB test. And I've never heard of one person that came in when I asked the question on a referral if you've had TB or if it was positive, and I've never gotten a positive answer. It's been negative. Oh, what are the solutions to the opiate epidemic? I mean, that's the golden question, and I don't know. Because this is a disease that. That can stop in a person if they have the tools and everything, but you have to want to stop using, or you have to have at least 51% willingness, to stop, and it's not just like, well, why don't you just stop using? Obviously, like there's other factors that go into it, but I mean, really, it's a drug addiction in any way is a communal disease. I think, it's like, as long as there's if you look at Clinton Avenue, there's really good people that live in that neighborhood. People who people tend to look at this open air drug mart. There's, all this is like, there's good people that live in that neighborhood. They have been living in those houses for generations or whatever. And, but are they going to stand up to somebody who's, has a gun, who's making a lot of money selling drugs and all this kind of thing? No. So, and as long as there's a demand, there's going to be the supply. So, I mean, I don't know how you stop this. You can have all the education in the world. You can have all the resources in the world, which are great when somebody's ready to stop. And when somebody's actually ready, you can go in that direction. But it's really up to the person. It's up to every individual case. Look at DARE or all these kind of things. They didn't do anything. It's you have to reach the person. The person's got to be willing to make that change. Otherwise, they're not going to stop. Go get help. I mean, seriously, like, to somebody in active addiction, all I could stress is, like, there are resources. You have more resources today in Rochester than ever before. I think, telling somebody, getting honest, and then, calling some of these places. Like, you could call Open Access 24/7. You don't have to say who you are. You don't have to say anything, but you can unload some of that burden. You can start getting connected with people who are doing the right thing. They're, and they're doing fun things. They're, activities and good people. But I mean, I would just start with just telling somebody, and just asking for help.
Do you know the number for Open Access right off the top of your head?
Yeah. The number for Open Access is 585-627-1777. To a mother and father, or just parents in general who have a kid that's using, my biggest thing is I'd say the same thing to somebody who's in active addiction. Like, get help. Find the resources in the community. There's plenty. Again, you can go to Open Access. They have all the resources available. You can call, Becky Baker at SOARS. You can reach out to Liberty Resources, who has family groups. There's Nar-Anon, Al-Anon. I mean, there's a ton of resources. You don't have to do it alone. And you get to kind of back up and, get help to see, like, if what I'm doing, for my child is actually enabling them to continue using, or am I, or is this love? Like, that's a line, but it's very blurry. I mean, you can get help with these things. There's plenty of groups out there and plenty of people that will give their time, to talk to you about it. So I'd say the same thing. Like, get help, look out, call Open Access.
Speak a little bit about enabling.
Whoa, let's see. Enabling is promoting negative behavior. How do I want to say it? It's promoting negative behavior in somebody when you think you're doing the right thing, or you think you're actually showing love. And that enabling, it's odd. Like I said, there's a difference between, like, love or unconditional love or helping and enabling. If somebody comes and, he asks you for money and you give them the money, you're enabling the drug use. Anything that's, and enabling is even a stigmatizing word. It's just, it's basically like how to help, the person that your family member, without, making their use easier. I don't know. Enabling is tough. I'm not really.
What would you say?
I don't think I could say anything. Like, that's I wouldn't even know what to say to somebody like that. I think somebody can overcome their addiction by finally reaching the point where you're out of denial. You can't not see, the negative consequences that are direct result from your using. So the pros, the benefits that you're getting from the drug are not outweighing, all the pain and all the consequences that you've left. So at that point, you know, at least in my case, and I'll speak for myself, is like where I became willing to do something, you know, where I had my mind open just a little bit to say, you know, maybe there's somebody out there that can help, and you know, I can reach out. You know, at that point, you start the process of, you know, recovery, and you know, you can overcome addiction again through connection to positive people who are doing, you know, the right thing, who are living a good life, people that can, you know, be empathetic and caring towards you. I think that's where it starts, to the overcoming addiction. Then, you know, you follow your path from there.
Could we do that?
What could I say to a grieving parent? I mean, it's that's one of the hardest things. You know, I couldn't even imagine what that feels like. Again, you know, anything I'd say, especially recent in that moment, would be. I don't think it would be good enough. It would be more for me because I felt uncomfortable. But I would urge them to seek resources and grief counseling in the community.
And then.
Sure. Yeah. Where I work, we work closely with the Heroin Task Force, and Mike Favada. He's an amazing officer, and he's out there all the time, you know, getting people connected. You know, he works under Sheriff Todd Baxter, and you know, who's running the jail, and the jail's just starting this new MAT program. Well, not just starting, but has started it. Wow, that was a whole botch. Yeah. We work closely with Mike Favada, who's the Heroin Task Force, basically, and he's under Sheriff Todd Baxter, who's the jail has a new MAT program, and he's kind of pushing it. He's really pushing that people get help instead of incarceration, you know, and you know, the rehabilitation is more important than you know, sentencing somebody to X amount of time or to making their life miserable or anything like that. So I think we're moving in a general good direction in the criminal justice thanks to those two. Sure. So the Heroin Task Force, you know, is Mike Favada, Todd Baxter, DA Sandra Dorley. They've also pushed that Project Hope is starting, which is, you know, a specific program to help people that are picked up that have never had, you know, they don't have a record or anything like that. They can choose to do this Project Hope and go through the criteria and go through all that in order to not have a criminal record. And so Sandra Dorley and a few others are really kind of moving in the right direction of, you know, how to help people instead of, you know, incarcerate them. If somebody's an IV drug user, they're subjecting themselves to a number of activities and things that can cause, you know, major diseases and all sorts of things, including, you know, the scarring, or people start picking themselves, so now they have infections all over them, abscesses and things like that. And when it's bad enough, you know, they have to go to the ER. You know, people who are overdosing have to go to the ER. People who, you know, are in, you know, heavy withdrawal can try to go there and get stabilized, and you know, and that's where, you know, the ER staff is hopefully taking care of them, you know, in the best of their ability.
And then
the sheer number of overdoses. You know, this year from January to June, I believe the data is about 370 overdoses in Monroe County, the majority being in the Rochester area. And I think about 57, if I'm correct, were fatalities. And so, and that's actually down from last year. Last year was almost double. So, you know, as we are moving forward, there's still a number of people who are losing their lives to this disease.
Is there any way you could?
Yeah, rarely. I mean, in my opinion, I think rarely substance use disorder is its own island. More often than not, we see mental health, the comorbidity of those two, and what's really happening is there's not many dual diagnosis inpatient places, for instance. So, most of the time when somebody's mental health, especially they'll stop taking medications or going to treatment and stuff like that because they'll be using, because the using is their coping mechanism now. So when they come into us and we get them into treatment, now when they go to treatment, that coping mechanism is gone. So now the mental health, who has been untreated, starts coming out, and those behaviors coming out, and all of a sudden the staff tends to look at that and either discharge the person for whatever behavior it is, or in even some cases refuse to give them medication, because they'll have to complete the program in order to get medication, and so we end up in a vicious cycle where we're still trying to look at the two of them as different, and they're the same. We have to treat both at the same time in a holistic way, because in my opinion, that's how we have to attack this thing. Because looking at one and the other is really negligent. Becky Baker and her program SOARS is really an amazing program. Becky, I know, has a huge heart, and she's all over the place. She's constantly, if you go to an event, Becky will be there inevitably, and I know she will talk to any family member who calls her, no matter what time. She will make that time for them and be that ear and that shoulder for people to lean on, and she does the Scotty B overdose awareness event every year. This will be the 4th one coming up, and that is it's a great event, I should say, because all the providers in the Rochester area and beyond that have anything to do with substance use or this field get together in that one place, and so it's a great resource for somebody who's struggling. The speakers that she gets there are usually top-notch, and they have a lot of good things to say, and all in all, it's just a good event. People get to see each other that haven't seen each other perhaps, and she's really done a lot in this community, so I have to give it to her. With every fatality, not every one of them is somebody who's been using a long time, and it seems more often than not, at least to the people I know, they're younger, and so to every 20-year-old or even teenager who's dying from an overdose, you got to think of the parents, the sister, the families, and friends, and all that are still here to feel that, and that's got to be the most difficult thing, and I can never even imagine. So the Chief of Public Health has been instrumental in really pushing the Narcan out into the community, which is it's a great resource, and where I work, we make sure we go out and to do outreach. We offer free Narcan training to anybody who walks in and everybody who walks in. He has also kind of helped the ER and the hospital systems in how to treat people who are in active addiction, and where to go, and where are the resources, and how we can get some continuity of care. So I think he's been pretty instrumental in kind of getting the medical side moving in the right direction in Rochester.
Do you have any last words?
I mean, I would just stress to anybody, like, there is a way out. When I was in active addiction, I thought I was gonna. I couldn't see a future beyond me dying on the streets in Rochester, on Clinton Avenue, and and that's what I resigned myself to, and looking back today, I'm just in awe of where I've been, and what I'm doing, and where I want to go, and the dreams that I have, and all of this. Like, you can break the cycle, you can move forward, you can get away from this. It's just asking for help. Again, good people have been the antidote to addiction. They've shown me that there's another way. And that's what I needed at that time. there's so, like I stress again, there's so many resources out there in the community right now, and you know, open access has become, you know, an institution the last 2 years. We have more connections there, and people are now not silos. You know, the communication between all these agencies is what needs to continue. You know, there's no island here, there's no silo, there's this, so we have to keep communication up and going in order to get this help, you know. I mean, that's really, I don't really got much, to be honest with you.